Hi everyone, it's Jay from jrendigital.com. Thanks for joining me in today's tutorial. I'm going to be covering the inventory tracker. If you're a small business owner and perhaps you're looking to keep track of your inventory and materials, you want to know the detailed cost per item that you produce, and of course, ways that you can start to look at the price structure of the products that you're producing. This is absolutely ideal for your needs. Before I dive into this though, there's a little bit of housekeeping I just need to go through. If you get stuck with anything at all, please feel free to watch this video as many times as you need. Secondly, we have a really detailed instruction tab here, so please feel free to read through this. I've also color-coded things so you can find your way around and get access to whatever you're stuck on. And last but not least, of course, we are available anytime. Should you get stuck with anything, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help out as well. One more thing I will say is please be sure not to enter data into the colored cells. That will cause errors, so try to avoid that as much as you can. Other than that, this is really straightforward and easy to use, and all we need to do is to get started, hit the setup tab over here. With the setup tab, there's only 3 things you need to input, and please do not skip through this before entering the data here. At the top, depending on what currency you're based in, you can have dollars or pounds, euros, shekels, whatever it is, whatever your country's currency is, you can enter that in there. One little word of caution is please do not double click on this, just enter once, and let's say I'm adding currency T for whatever reason, and if I want to change that back to dollars, nice and easy, just hit that there. And again, that will depend on what your locale is and your currency. Step number 2, if you are charged as sales tax for the cost of goods, as we are here in Australia, we have something called GST. You can enter the amount here. This could be different for different countries, and if you don't have that at all, feel free to add that there as well if you're lucky enough not to get taxed. Next is step number 3, we have units. This is the unit per item that you're looking to manufacture. For example, you could have a roll or a bag, a gram, an ounce, whatever you choose. And if you want to add any more there, you can just put in the details there, kilo or pound, for example, there. That's it, straightforward, and this will automatically populate to the other 3 tabs here as well, so please do not skip this step. Once you've done all this, all you need to do is click over to the inventory tab here. I'll just explain a little bit about what these details mean, and then I'll show you how to enter the data there as well. Materials, this is the materials that you currently have on hand. In the first example here, we have linen fabric roll. This isn't always applicable, but some companies have an SKU. If you do have one of those, by all means, feel free to enter it there. Next, we have the price of this particular good. Let's assume that it is $45. That will automatically calculate the rest of it. You do not need to add a dollar symbol there, because if you recall, this is automatically derived from our setup tab. The number of units per roll or bar in this case, let's assume that it's 50. And you've got the drop-down menu, which allows you to change the unit type. Let's say it's the pounds of roll. Okay, that's inaccurate. Let's change that because it is a roll. Make that nice and easy and even across everything. Once again, should you need to add any of these here, please do not try to edit any of this. Just go to the setup tab and enter those details there as well. Next, this will automatically calculate based on the inventory you currently have available. In this case, I've assumed that we've got 48 rolls available. The last time I checked this was late October. Obviously, you can add your date, which I'll explain in a moment as well. The minimum inventory that you need in order to stay stocked up. And over here, we have the status, which gives you a couple of different options there. These are highlighted to make it really easy visually to see what needs to be reordered soon and what is already out of stock. As you can see, in stock, reorder soon, time to reorder, and then out of stock there as well. Now this will automatically calculate the total inventory value and give you a total down the bottom. Actually, not up the bottom, over there, I should say. And some notes on the right hand side. Should you need to add anything, just double click into these boxes and then add whatever you choose there as well. Now if we come down to the next row here, let's assume that we want to add something. We've put magic marker there as an example, but let's say that we want to put paper, actually coloured paper. There we go. I'm not going to put in an SKU. As you can see, the dollar symbol automatically populated. For this one, I'm going to say it's $4.99, and I'm going to say that there are 5 units per box. There we go. Where are we? That gives the total price, which is automatically calculated. Let's say that I have 5 of these boxes available. The date, current date is, you don't need to put the year, that will automatically populate. The minimum inventory I need, I could do anything, so 1, in stock. Technically, you could say there's 5, say time to reorder, etc., etc. That gives the total inventory value. If I want to add any notes, once again, I can say order soon. And that's it for the inventory tracker. Next, we go over to the price calculator. So here you'll find a really detailed price calculator, and this allows you to work out the pricing structure that you might have for your products in a couple of different ways. So this is really detailed and gives you a really good sense of exactly what to price your products, and once again, depending on the pricing model that you choose. So we always start at the upper left-hand side here. We've got the product name, so I've decided to make a hardcover cake journal because I like to add in all the cakes that I've eaten over the course of the year. And I'm sure as a product, other people would want to buy this as well. So next we have a look at the total products per batch. So let's assume that I'm creating 100 of these little hardcover journals to sell, and I might change that. I might decide, actually, you know what, I only want to create 50 on this particular occasion. Or I might decide I want 200. Depends on what I'm looking to do with it, right? Let's just say it's 100. Now, moving down to how do you want to define the price? So we've actually got 4 options of how to price your products here, and I'm just going to cover what these mean and how to enter the data there, and then I'll explain a little bit about the pricing breakdown as well. So the very first option that we have here is based on the initial price, and as you can see, that is automatically highlighted there. Now, the initial price, if you refer to the box to the right hand side here, includes the material cost, the labor cost, the equipment cost, any other costs to get the product cost, and the profit margin, and then the initial price. That would automatically factor in what your profit margin is going to be based on the product costs, if that makes sense. To enter the details here, remembering that we are looking at the hardcover cake journal, we scroll down to enter the SKU, should that be relevant. And let's assume that we want to make at least $30 on the initial price. And this is a guesstimate. We might have an idea in our mind of what the price should be. So let's assume that it's 35. I want to be a bit more aggressive than that. The final price, and again, this will change depending on the pricing structure, but then we've got the profit target that we're aiming for, as well as the profit margin and any discounts that we want to add in there as well. That's the first way to do it, and it's going to give you a bit of info there in terms of the profit after the details have been entered, including any sales tax, including any discounts, things like that, and then also tell you what the final price is going to be. You also have your profit margin over the side here as well, which, as we mentioned, this is going to be at the 40% level, as well as production costs and the items that go into the cost distribution as well. On the next part, if we want to price it in a different manner, we can go down and have a look at the final price. So final price, in this one here, we've decided that we want to have that as $60. Now what this means is that it's taking into consideration on the pricing breakdown, the materials, labor, equipment, other, gives you the product cost and the target profit, which is automatically derived. And this also shows you what the initial price would need to be, including any discounts and sales tax to get your final price. So hopefully that makes sense. Next one, we can then have a look at target profit. This is our dollar figure that we have here. Once again, these are all editable, so just click on it once and we want to make $20 profit per unit. All the figures are automatically going to change. And once again, because it's the target profit, this is also going to show you what the target profit amount is. So we put 20 here, it matches that there, and it shows you exactly what the breakdown of that looks like. So that means that the price breakdown, including materials, labor, equipment, other costs, gives you the product costs, the target profit, which is what we're aiming for, which then means that our initial price would actually need to be $35 minus any discounts that we're offering. In this case, we decided to give a very generous 20%, which gives you minus $7, and the price after discount, $28, and then the sales tax, $2.80, which then derives the final price. That means that's the final price you'd need to be selling it for in order to make a minimum of $20 profit. Hopefully this is making sense. Now, last but not least, we also have the profit margin down the bottom there. So if we click on that, once again, this automatically highlights. And let's say you're wanting to have a pretty decent profit margins, around about 40%. But of course, you could change that. You decide, actually, you know what, I think after costs, it might be a little bit more reasonable if I'm only making 20%. But I want to make sure that my discount's a little bit smaller. And once again, you've got the product costs over here, the cost of manufacturing total, so that's the total cost there. The target profit, this is again on the assumption that you're wanting to make 20% profit margin, so this is automatically derived, remember. And this gives you the initial price minus any discounts, so we're only discounting 10% in this example. The price after discount, $16.90, minus any sales tax, which once again, this is from the setup tab, is 10%, and as you can see there as well. And that gives you a final price of $18.59. But that is on the assumption that you only want a 20% profit margin. Now, of course, we could go a little bit more aggressive. We could say, okay, well, I want to make sure that I'm selling it for a lot. I want to make sure that I'm making 60% profit. Now we're looking a little bit better. So now it's telling you that the final price you need to sell this for would be a minimum of $37.18 in order to derive a 60% profit margin, which gives you a target profit of $22.53 per unit. One other thing I'll mention here just before we move on is the profit margin is before tax and before discounts. Just keep that in mind when you are doing your pricing. Now that we understand the breakdown of this particular section, let's add in some of the materials so we can get an idea of where these particular figures come from. So across the bottom, you've got 4 options: raw material costs, labor costs, equipment costs, and other costs to the right-hand side there. So let's start with raw material costs. And right at the top there, you've got the first material, which is A5 hardcover. And once again, these are automatically derived from our inventory. So if we click on the drop down, as you can see, these are all things that we've added in there. So that's automatically there. Next, we have the quantity that we have, and that will automatically calculate the rest of it for you. The per unit cost, this is an interesting one. So let's assume that for our batch, the bubble mailer has 100. You need 100 because we're asking to create 100 units. But let's assume that for our elastic bands, we have a total of 3, but we want to have 3 per every single unit that we produce, right? So that means that every one of these 100 products that we're producing is going to have 3 of these elastic white bands on it. So all we do is click over here where it says per unit, and as you can see, that gives you the per unit cost. Now, if you're a solopreneur, you might decide not to include your labor costs. So however, I would encourage you to add something there just because it's good for future planning when you are looking to hire staff. And of course, if you do currently have staff that are working for you, then it should be really simple to add these details in. All you need to do is put in the particular operation that the people are doing. So in this case, it's say cutting materials, and the approximate time that it takes to cut those things. So in this case, I've said it's around about 11 minutes to produce everything. And in this instance, you've got the unit of time, whether you can change between minutes or hours. In this case, I've said it's only going to take 11 minutes. And of course, the hourly rate of what you're actually paying each individual to perform that particular task. Over here, we have the equipment costs. Now, this one's a little bit interesting. Some folks choose not to add this in. I really encourage folks to try to look into it if you can, because if you want to get a true sense of the actual production costs, you're probably going to want to factor in some of these details moving forward as well. So the very first one we've got there, a paper cutter. And the amortization, this is a tricky thing to get a handle on for some folks, and it certainly was for myself when I started learning about this stuff. But the amortization is the time it takes, or the amount of uses it takes before this particular item is no longer valid, before it is basically sees the end of its shelf life. So in this case, a paper cutter, I've suggested that basically 2,000 hours, and the total cost for that was $450, which gives you a very almost a negligible cost per unit there as well. Now, over there on the right-hand side for other costs, we have, say for example, the shipping box. Now, as you can see, I've ticked the per unit cost of this, and I've decided that the unit cost is actually only $1, and so that will automatically show me what the per unit cost is, which of course is $1. The totals of these are tallied automatically at the bottom, which then goes into our price breakdown over here as well. Okay, last but not least on this particular tab, if we just scroll over to the right-hand side there, we've got a couple of scenarios that I really love playing around with. All right, and looking at the different pricing scenarios here, there's a couple of different ways that you can use this in order to see either how much money you want to make, or how much you're wanting to make per unit, or potential hypotheticals in terms of pricing as well. So scenario number one, if I want to sell my product for, let's say, let's be ultra generous and say $90, there you go. Oops, it's going to say that. We can actually get rid of that because we're not looking at editing anything. It'll say my profit will be $84.70. That's a handsome profit per unit. And my profit margin will be 84.7%, which is absolutely insane. So that's a great pricing model. Scenario number two, if I want to make, say, $1,500, let's be a bit more generous at $2,000, then I'm going to need to sell 105 units. And if I am not going to apply a discount, then I only need to sell 88 units. Now, how do we figure this one out? Going back to our little pricing breakdown over here, we have discount 10%. So if we change that and we're insane and we go, you know what, 99% off because we're mental. Then if we go back over here, as you can see, we need to sell minus 139.5 units or at just 88 if we're getting rid of the discount there. So let's go back to normality. There we go. Right, so last but not least, or last two but not least, if I reduce my production cost by, say, $8 per unit, then my profit will be $14.95 and my profit margin will be 67%. Again, absolutely healthy. If I change my profit margin to, say, just only 10%, let's be a bit more generous than that. Let's say I can get 45%, then I'm going to make $25 per unit, which represents a decrease compared to what we were aiming at before. If you recall, we were aiming at a 60% margin of 27%, right? So that's the price calculator. Let's click on the price list to keep moving forward. With the price list, we can easily see the top sellers right up the top, and we can also see the number of units that are being sold with those as well. At the very top here, this is probably the most important part to take note of, and please don't ignore this part of the video, is this is automatically derived from the information we put in the price calculator. We don't actually need to enter much in the way of data in here, and the reason for that is because all we need to do is hold down Shift or Command, it might be on Mac, over to final price. We're going to hit Control C or right click and copy. And this is to add some more data here. Bearing in mind I've already added a test run previously, but let's do it again for argument's sake. Now, you can't copy and paste as you normally would with anything else. You need to paste the values only. The way that we do that is really simple. We go right click and we go paste special and values only. Bang, that'll get that up. Undo that so I can show you the little shortcode. If you're on a PC, it is Control, Shift, and V. That'll do that. So the reason why we want to do that is because there are formulas in the background here. We don't want to mess with those. And this saves us having to try and override the formulas in order to put our data in. If you're wondering, I think it's Command, Shift, and V on a Mac, but don't quote me on that. I apologize, I'm not a Mac user. All we need to enter here is the quantity that we've sold. So we assume after we've created an amazing hardcover cake journal and it started selling like hotcakes, excuse the pun, then we've found that we've actually sold a whopping 97. So we have to reorder some of these soon because they're going out pretty well. If we tab across, then we've made 1,800 odd bucks there, which is not too shabby. If you recall, I think we're aiming for only, was it 1,500 from the scenarios from memory. And then quite simply add some notes there should we choose to as well. We can also see our top 3 most profitable products up the top. And that's pretty much it. That's it. That is the inventory tracker. Thank you so much for joining me. Once again, my name's Jay from jrendigital.com. Feel free to reach out should you have any questions, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. Thanks very much.